Okay, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this executive meeting. Item 1 on the agenda is attendances. I've received apologies from Councillors Wright and Slater, and also Councillor Harding, who is away on holiday. And I know that Councillor Carter is hoping to join the call slightly later, but is detained on another meeting, so may or may not be with us. Item 2 is questions from members of the public. I am aware that one question has been received. It has been agreed, because of the format of this meeting, that we will hear the question in the meeting now, and then a written response will be sent by the executive member, Councillor Adshead. So if I could ask Joe Maloney from Democratic Services to share the question for us, please. Joe.
Thanks, Leader. The question I will read out to you as written. Just for members' information, there was a map included on the email, which is just an illustrative location plan. The text of the question is as follows. Dear Councillor Stephen Adshead, my name is Robert Bacon, and I have been discussing proposals for change to Oxford Road in Altrincham with Councillor Sean Anstey, CBE, Conservative Member for Bowden Ward, Shadow Executive Member for Children's Social Care, Trafford Council, and Sir Graham Brady. I have obtained overwhelming support from residents of Oxford Road and have numerous signed petitions in support of the following. A, making Oxford Road a resident access only, brackets, or dead end, either at Rigby Street or at the junction with Hale Road, close brackets, reducing traffic flow and subsequently encouraging walking and cycling, whilst at the same time reducing, I think it means wear and tear, it actually says water and tear on the text, on what is essentially a cut-through route to Hale Road, see map. B, Oxford Road, brackets, and Peter Street, close brackets, resurfacing. The road is in terrible condition and has been allowed to deteriorate terribly over the years, which also impacts drainage, causing flooding and subsequent property damage as a result, and making it dangerous for cyclists and road users alike. C, pavement refurbishments. The pavements are in very poor condition and slope badly towards the road. Some residents are elderly and use wheelchairs and have to use the road because of poor pavement condition and the very obvious slope, especially on the right side as you travel down Oxford Road. FYI, it's one way. By way of support for our proposals, I would like to request that funding is allocated from the COVID-19 walking and cycling funds, etc., to ensure these changes are put in place swiftly. Additional benefits would be to provide a direct walking stroke cycling link between Altrincham and Hale, and as Oxford Road is purely a cut-through road to Hale Road, where access already exists via the main road, brackets, Ashley Road, close brackets, it would have no major impact on traffic flow and or affect any emergency services. Kind regards, Robert Bacon.
Thank you, Joe. So as indicated before you shared the question with us, Councillor Adshead will organise a written response to be sent to Mr Bacon, copying in, I think, as is appropriate, Councillor Anstey and Graham Brady, and perhaps the other Bowden Ward members as well, if that's okay, Steve. Thank you. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations from members of the exec? Thanks. Item 4, matters from council or overview and scrutiny committees. We have today received a written report as to the work of the pandemic scrutiny committee that has been set up in the short term. Councillor Acton, is there anything to add to that?
Yeah. Thank you, Leader. Can you hear me?
Yes, can now.
Can you hear? Hello?
Is it just me struggling to hear, Councillor?
No, sir. Sorry, through you, Leader.
Can you not hear me?
now it's a bit better. Can you please go contact on maybe closer to your main router, sir, please?
No, I think we've got some technical issues with
I'm
Councillor.
not sure I'm able to do that, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, well, we have received the report in writing, so we have had an update as to the work of the committee, which obviously we're very grateful for in these unusual times. So we will thank the committee for their work and for sharing that with us this afternoon. Okay, we will move on to item 5, which is the public interest report by the local government ombudsman into complaints against the Trafford Council Waste Collection Service. Councillor Adshead, please.
Thank you, Leader. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Yes, the report details the outcome of the investigation by the Ombudsman into complaints with the waste services and details the actions taken by the Council to help address the issues arising from the Ombudsman's report. The original complaints date back to between May and July 2019. The overriding theme of these particular complaints was a failure to return bins to the correct location and missed garden and food waste collections. The Council acknowledged that there has been issues with the waste collection service and was working with its service provider, Amy, to improve the waste collection service. In response to the Ombudsman's draft report, the Council advised the Ombudsman that the Council had already identified areas of service failure and were in formal process with Amy to review performance and address service delivery issues with a view to significantly improving the level of service it provides to residents. The Council has actively engaged with the recommendations in the report to ensure that the complaints have seen an improvement in the service they receive. They have all confirmed that they are now satisfied with the level of service they receive. A thorough review of the complaints system will take place, including reviewing the steps suggested by the Ombudsman to give residents a further opportunity to engage with the waste service before contacting the Ombudsman. Amy have appointed 3 new supervisors in the last year, making a total of 5. In February, they had a management change with a new waste operations manager and a new principal operations manager now in post. They've also engaged a company called Orange Civils, an independent company, to monitor the service, engage with residents and resolve issues with their collections. Amy have recruited to all loader vacancies, which should lead to an improvement in the service as reliance on agency staff is vastly reduced. Use of agency staff is only required to cover sickness and holidays. Section 4.2 of the report sets out the 8 recommendations, 5 of which will be completed, and following approval of this report this afternoon, a further 2 of these will progress to completion, with the 8th one to actually ask overview and scrutiny to review the work and see if the changes have resulted in service improvements. With that, Leader, I will move the report and actually ask if we have any questions.
Thank you,
I've just got a bit of something in my throat, so I'll just take a glass of water.
That's all right. Just pop yourself on mute, Steve. That's fine. Thanks. Are there any questions from members of the executive? If so, could you indicate either in the chat or just come in? No? Okay. Moving on to questions more widely. Councillor Evans has a comment.
Thank you, Leader. It was just picking up. Thank you for the report, and it'd be interesting to see how we can progress this over the coming weeks and months. Section 4.2, item C, suggests that the overview and scrutiny committee are going to consider changes, etc. That's effectively not meeting at this point in time. Let's hope it potentially by September. Is the pandemic scrutiny committee going to pick up this in the interim, or is it just going to be parked until September? Councillor
Adshead, do you want to respond to that?
Chair, I mean, I'm not on scrutiny, so I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, I will discuss this with senior officers on this later today or tomorrow, and actually see if we can get in touch with scrutiny, see what arrangements they wish to make. I mean, obviously, we have the emergency scrutiny committee measures, and if that's appropriate to do that. And obviously, the sooner we can do this, the better, in my view. And I can't see why we are trying to get back to business as usual. And I'm certainly keen to actually have this in the system now and actually looked at quickly. So we'll get back to Councillor Evans on that as soon as we can and confirm what's been decided, if that's acceptable.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Outer.
Yeah, I mean, it just as an aside on that, just for clarity, I would think it probably falls outside of the remit of the terms of reference of the Pandemic Scrutiny Committee. You know, I mean, obviously we don't normally meet in August anyway, so if we are in a position to start up normal scrutiny arrangements from September, then we should be well placed to press on with that work without much outside usual delay. Are there any other questions or comments on that at all? Just checking. No, doesn't appear to be so. Okay, the report, excuse me, the report has a series of recommendations. Can they be agreed by the executive, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 6 is the corporate plan. Councillor Freeman, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. Can you hear me?
Yes, please
Oh,
proceed.
thank you. By way of introduction, during the course of the last 12 months, we've been reporting on a quarterly basis the performance of the corporate plan. And today I've got two reports for you, the corporate plan Q4 performance and the annual summary of the financial year 1920. As we'll all be aware, the Council identified 7 strategic priorities that we believe are crucial to enabling Trafford residents, businesses and staff to thrive. These priorities set out our aspirations for our people, place and communities, and how they can affect and improve their daily lives. And as a reminder, the priorities are building quality, affordable and social housing, health and well-being, successful and thriving places, children and young people, pride in our area, green and connected, and targeted support. The corporate plan describes how these priorities will be delivered over a 3-year period, April 19 to March 2022. This ensures that staff, partners and residents understand the actions required by them for the Council and identifies the resources available to deliver the stated aims and objectives. The plan helps the Council and teams to monitor performance, to make use of the opportunities presented and control our systems and structures effectively. I'll start then with 6A, the corporate plan Q4 performance. The Q4 report provides a summary of the performance from the 1st of January to the 31st of March 2020. This period was also impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Each priority has a summary of activity for Q4. These activities are a combination of both qualitative and quantitative activity, and the output for each quarter depends on the deliverables that are achieved for that quarter. The key performance indicators are on page 3 of the report, and they are red, amber and green in status. So some of the key highlights are the number of housing completions has already achieved the annual target. The Trafford pledge far exceeded the annual target and helped 249 local people back into employment, with 86 being helped in this particular quarter. We have continued in Trafford to maintain a low level of 16 to 17-year-olds who are not in education, training or employment. And at 1.96% is an improvement on last year's performance and better than the national average. Other areas worthy of note include Trafford's Affordable Housing Fund, which was established in September 18. This has enabled the Council to fund the development of 30 socially rented properties in Timperley in partnership with Trafford Housing Trust. The development received planning approval in February this year and is due to complete next year. 6 community hubs were mobilised by the voluntary sector and partners to support residents in Trafford as a result of the pandemic. Trafford companies entitled to the Extended Business Rates Relief Scheme in retail, hospitality and leisure have received 100% relief on their 2021 bill, meaning they have nothing to pay this year. 100 business assists were made in Q4 and 288 supported over the year, and the annual target was 200. Council staff were provided with laptops and equipment to work from home. Microsoft Teams have been installed to support council staff and to communicate and collaborate virtually. The Trafford Homeless Strategy was also approved in March 19, covering the years 2020 to 24. In Q4 2019-20, 95 households were prevented from becoming homeless. Overall, in 2019-20, there were 427 people prevented from becoming homeless against a target of 400. For any indicator off target with a red or amber status, the report provides an exception report that has been prepared to outline why performance is below target and what action is in place to improve performance. For Q4, there are 5 indicators with an amber status and 1 with a red status, and exception reports have been completed, and plus an additional exception report for complaints, as it is, whilst it's not a specific indicator, there has been an increase since the last quarter, as we will know from the previous item that was that Councillor Adshead spoke to. And at this stage, Leader, I'd like to invite questions from anybody on the Q4 report before I move on to the annual report.
Any questions or comments on the Q4 report from members of the executive? Any questions or comments more widely? No. Okay, Councillor Freeman, if you want to proceed to the annual report, please.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of the annual report is to tell Trafford Council's story to all, including our residents and staff, of what we've delivered from April 19 to March 2020. It clearly communicates the Council's values and the key metrics and the major achievements of the past year in a visually appealing way. The case studies in the report put the focus on the people that have been impacted by the Council's work and brings to life each of the priorities in a very real way. It demonstrates the human element of what we do, how we do, and how well we are doing it. Some of the highlights from the annual report include the Trafford Older People Strategy, Housing Strategy 2020-25 was launched in March 2020. This strategy looks to extend the housing options and support developed for older people in Trafford to enable them to live independently. The launch of the Trafford Local Care Organisation, TLCO, and the published locality plan. The investment of 150,000 that was secured from Trafford Housing Trust to address health inequalities. The developed master plans for the Civic Quarter, Stretford and Stamford Quarter. Trafford, moving on to Trafford educational attainment levels, they're some of the best in the country. 11 of the Trafford parks have been awarded green flags. This is up from 1 in the previous year. The opening of the Metrolink Trafford Park line ahead of schedule. And the re-signing of the Armed Forces Covenant in support of the servicemen and women. And also a big shift this last year in inquiries shifted to online, significantly higher than the annual target. But, you know, what we're looking at now is we're going through a review and a stock take of our strategic priorities and key deliverables under each priority. This review of the deliverables and measures for the coming year is critical given the impact of COVID-19 on services and resources and the recovery that is underway. These are being reviewed through heads of service, strategic leads and departmental management teams so that we can ensure the measures and the timelines are accurate and achievable. The review will also include a stock take of the plan on a page. We always said we would constantly review and update after the first year, and the unprecedented changes and challenges we've faced, it's appropriate to revisit all aspects and refine as necessary. And in respect of that review, we expect a report to be delivered to the executive in the autumn, with it then coming on back to executive around about that time. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. Are there any questions or comments from members of the executive? Okay, Councillor Coggins, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I welcome the update, and particularly the review and stock take I hear is ongoing. In September last, the Climate Emergency Task and Finish Group recommended that climate action actually be put in there as a priority in the corporate plan. At the moment, we're still measuring ourselves against the old plan that lumps climate action in with new road building under the reassuring title Green and Connected with the leaf symbol. So I'm keen to know that this will be under consideration or indeed prioritised as one of the new priorities. And I suppose keen to know if the exec feel that actually a year and a half on from our climate emergency and 10 months on from this recommendation, this has really been treated with the urgency that it needs. Thank you.
Councillor Freeman.
Just to reassure Councillor Coggins, that will be taken into consideration, Councillor, in relation to the stock take, and as and when we go through that. It's been on our list, and I would invite Councillor Adshead to probably talk to you about whether you think we've made enough progress in respect of climate change.
Thank you. Any comments, Councillor Adshead?
Yes, thank you, Leader. So there will be a report coming to Executive within the next few months. I think it's been delayed because of COVID, and I've been pursuing that obviously for some time now. But it's unfortunate, but it seems to affect a lot of things. But rest assured, it's something that we are taking seriously, and we're looking at and keen to get us in there. But it's just unfortunately taking a bit longer with the pandemic we've got at the moment. But rest assured, it will be coming to the Executive in the near future. Hopefully, that's helpful.
Thank you. And Councillor Boyes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. It's just I'm just trying to get my head around one statistic we mentioned there, and that's to do with the number of green flag parks. Councillor Freeman said we've gone up from 1 to 11. I wasn't quite aware that we'd gone down to 1 from a previous level. So
no, Councillor Boyes, we've gone from up by 1 to 11. 11 of our parks have been awarded a green flag.
I apologise, Councillor Freeman. I misheard what you said, but
it's the Birmingham accent. Don't worry about it.
We've gone up by 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions or comments on this item? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Leader. I was just picking up on 163 people supported through Bed for the Night, and 718 provided with food vouchers, etc., which is great. How are our resources standing? I've had a few issues with respect to people at the Amblehurst, which are potentially not from our own borough, but are there, but with no food and no general support from across GM. Are we finding it a struggle to support these people? And how can we support these people? I understand it's a bed, but it hasn't got any support wrapped around it.
It's certainly an issue that manifested itself most clearly at the beginning of the pandemic, when I think other councils within GM were placing residents in the Amblehurst and then reaching out to our community hubs for support and provision. My understanding, and it may be that the situation has changed very recently and I've not been further briefed, is that through the working relationships that we have across Greater Manchester, we were able to nip much of that issue in the bud, and there is significantly more support for those people from the authority placing them than there was at this point perhaps 3 months ago. So there's certainly been a substantial improvement in that regard, Councillor Evans, but obviously if you're still hearing of specific cases, feel free to let us know and we'll take that away.
I mean, that was over the past 7 days, Leader, so it's still a pertinent problem. So, okay, we'll be in touch.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay. We'll take the two reports together, 6A and 6B. So the Q4 report and then the overarching annual report. They're just for noting. Are exec members happy to note those reports, please?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 7 is the budget monitoring for 2021, period 2. Councillor Ross, please.
Thank you very much. I'm asking the executive to note the period 2 outturn report. You'll see in the report the current projection is of a budget shortfall of 17.7 million, which comprises the COVID-19 impact of 23.2 million and a projected 5.5 million underspend in core service budgets. However, we need to treat that particular figure with a great degree of caution because this is very early into the year for making such projections, and a lot of that shortfall or underspend is in the demand-led budget. So we're best to treat that figure with caution. Since this paper was published, we've got a bit more information on the 2nd of July announcement, which will help improve the situation, but the it will not cover the full extent of the projected deficit. So we are going to be receiving £1.8 million from the government as part of their package that they announced on the 2nd of July. We're going to have the ability to defer losses on business rates and council tax to future years, which will help us in this immediate year, but obviously store up financial commitments in later years. We've got this income scheme that's been announced, but we've not got the detail for that yet. But as soon as we do, we'll be able to come back with a more accurate picture of the budget situation in year. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any questions or comments from members of the executive? No. Okay. Questions or comments more widely. Councillor Coggins first, and then Councillor Myers, please.
Thank you, and thanks for the updates we've been getting as group leaders as well on this. It's been really useful to have a good grasp on what's been going on. I just wanted some reassurances that our medium and long-term strategies on active transport, both on the A56 and elsewhere, are being taken into account in terms of our financial situation. Sometimes it can be easy to think of those things in terms of a public health issue, which is obviously what's a huge advantage of them at the moment. But of course, we know from all the evidence that actually making it easy for people to move around freely, especially in the absence of public transport as we're going to face this winter, can really lead to an uptick in the local economy. And I'm just looking for reassurance, I suppose, that all that is being considered and that we're looking at this in an evidence-based way and its impact on our finances. Thanks.
Councillor Ross, do you want to take that one first?
I am happy to take that, and then I'll defer to either Nikki or Stephen with specifics around the capital. But no, absolutely, as an executive, we do see and value the importance of active travel. You'll see that we're looking at the way that we approach the capital budget now for the year. A large part of that is what funding's already there and how best we can work with the current capital. But I'll just ask if Nikki first of all wants to come in, and then followed by Stephen, I've said, with regards to individual commitments.
Thanks. Nikki?
Hi, so anything which is currently already committed is included in this report. So anything which is currently in the plan is included in this report. If it was made since the plan, then it could well be part of the cycle schemes that have been announced as part of COVID. And I'm afraid I don't know the detail of those off the top of my head, but I can find out the answer for you.
Thanks, Nikki. Steve, was there anything from you on that in particular?
Thank you, Lou. Just to comment, obviously, that the funding for these COVID schemes are actually not our monies. They're coming from special funds set up from government, which we're getting through the GMCA, and we're recharging to those. So it's not actually our own funding on that. So hopefully that assures you that that won't have any impact on our programme.
Yeah, I mean, and I recognise Councillor Coggins asked about the medium and long term, so Nikki will come back to you on that. Thanks, Councillor Coggins.
There is tranche one proposals that are more long term strategies, and they should be hopefully be able to look at those in the near future.
Thanks, Councillor Arthur. Councillor Myers, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Can I ask about adult services, and specifically page 8 in table 2, about halfway down the actual note, it says that there's been a payment, or it's been a planned payment of £4.3 million to care providers for additional cost to provide sustainability in the market. That just seems quite a high figure, because further down the same page, it says they're also going to receive £2.3 million for infection control. Can we just have a bit more explanation, please?
Yeah, sure. My understanding of that is that it was to provide some certainty to providers. Councillor Ross, you wanted to come in on that, or are you happy for me to ask Diane to come in?
I'm happy for you to ask Diane.
Yeah, could I ask Diane Eaton to come in on that, if that's okay, please?
Yes, thank you, Linda. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Diane.
Thank you. Just for clarity, so the infection control grant was passported through to the council with the understanding that the whole values would be passported to providers. So it's set by government on the values that need to be given to the providers, both around the personal protective equipment, isolating staff, isolating customers in care homes when they go in from hospital, reducing staff moving between sites, etc. So most of those values are mandated. The part that the council then took some decisions on was supporting the occupancy rates in care homes that dropped below 90%, which is set against their business model. Most local authorities have done something very, very similar. Those are under review again in August, as most of that money then is passported through the COVID funding in the CCG. So the adult social care budgets do look quite confusing at the moment because of the money coming in and the money going out, both to providers and the recharging through to the CCG. If it would be helpful to do something separate offline, I'll happily go through the detail with you, Councillor Myers, if that would be helpful to you.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful. I understand the infection control 2.27 million. I understand that, but is the 4.3 million to pay for empty beds?
They're not necessarily empty. It's the additional beds we've purchased to support people discharged from hospital. So we have block purchased a number of beds so that we have those facilities available. We have about 100, and they're in use at different times throughout the month or 4 months now. So they aren't empty. They're in use, but they move quite quickly because people go into the beds, recover, and then go home. So it's those discharged to assess beds that are supporting the discharges.
Thank you, Leader. It's fine.
Thanks, Councillor Myers. And thanks, Diane, for that and for the offer to pick that up offline also. Are there any other questions or comments on this? Clearly a very important item, but also quite a challenging one for us at the moment. So thank you, Councillor Ross, for that update. The report is for noting. Can that be noted, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then item 8 is Councillor Ross again with the Treasury Management Annual Performance Report for 1920. Councillor Ross, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this report is the annual report, and it went to Accounts and Audit last week, and it's here asking us to note. So obviously it's a roundup of the previous year, and I'd like to take this opportunity to give my thanks to the Treasury Management team for their ongoing work and looking ahead to what does look like a very challenging year ahead, if you read the report on the forecasts.
Thanks, Councillor Ross. And this report also goes in due course to Council, I believe, for noting. So there are some stages to go with this. Any questions or comments from members of the executive? No. More widely, Councillor Myers, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Can I ask, has the council actually considered an alternative to the Public Works Loan Board as an alternative fund for a source of funding for projects? And then secondly, I noticed that the amount we're lending to other councils has increased quite dramatically over the year. It's actually gone up by 14.5 million. Can I ask how safe that money is if any of those councils were to declare a problem with balancing their budget?
Councillor Myers. Councillor Ross.
I will ask Nikki to come in at this point, if that's okay.
Sure.
Hi, Councillor Myers. Yes, we have started to think about other forms of borrowing. PWLB always used to be very cheap compared to others, and also very easy to arrange. Those two things are becoming less advantageous now. So we are looking around for other forms as well, just to make sure we're obviously getting best value for money when we're investing for capital. And your second question, remind me what it was.
It was about the safety of the money. How
yes.
15 million.
Yes. So lending money between councils has been going on for a long time. And we actually borrow money from other councils as well for cash flow purposes. So we tend to move money around between us on a short-term basis. Most of our loans to other councils will be on a short-term basis, probably 6 months or so. I think the government, the covenant which comes from a public sector organisation, even in light of the pandemic, still gives it a very good credit rating. If we had credit ratings, I think it would give us still because of that covenant.
Sorry, Leader, can I come back? I was specifically interested, should any of those councils actually declare a Section 114 notice?
I'm not entirely sure in the position were they to declare a Section 114. As I understand it, they would still owe us the money. I don't think we've got very much money out with other councils at the moment, but I will find out for you and I'll come back to you.
Well, the actual figure, Nikki, is 14.5 million.
In the report, that would have been at the time, though. It will change on a daily basis.
So could we take that away, Nikki? Clarify the position around what would happen if somebody were to declare 114, and also the current amount that we've got out would be useful. I think if you could provide that to Councillor Myers, Councillor Ross, that would be great. Thanks, Nikki. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to put on record our group's thanks to the Treasury team for putting this report together, and the work that they have been thrown into over the past 4 or 5 months, and no doubt the work that they'll continue doing. It is appreciated, and I know it's been a challenge and will continue to be so. So just from the group, it is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Evans. Councillor Butt, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question for clarity on page 86, 5.7. It's regarding the council's long-term investments. There was taken out in 2015, £5 million, which was placed in the CCLA property fund for a minimum period of 5 years. Obviously, for the finishes, this would have finished this year. I don't know how long it's actually extended for, but it's obviously it's in a negative situation, and so it's been put on so as a result of the coronavirus. But there does seem to be a very positive comment on 5.8 to say that there's likely to be a bounce back in values commencing 2021. I'm just wondering whether this whether the fund was, the investment was for 5 years, and perhaps it would have been timely to have taken it out this year, or was it a case of is it extended, or how long it's for, and you know, the possibility of losing even more money on it.
I think we probably have one for Nikki there.
It's one for Nikki. I mean, I'm just thinking back to about 5 years ago when I raised these concerns in the opposition. So yes, I mean, Nikki. I mean, I think the trends in the assessments are that it's okay, but I'll let Nikki come in and answer it in full.
I think the thing about these investments in things like the CCLA property fund is that they are long-term investments. We get a very good return from this, far better than we get from anywhere else that we put our money, really, with the interest rates as they are at the moment. The capital value of it does go up and down. For years after I arrived, the capital value was below our purchase price because you pay stamp duty. And so I think last year was the first time that it had managed to sort of tip over above the purchase price. It has gone down very slightly, but at the moment it's one that we would be intending to hold on to with the view of it probably climbing up again. But obviously we review all of our investments on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments on this item? No. Okay, so the report is just for noting. Can that be noted, please?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9 is the executive response to the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee task and finish on EHCPs and the process in Trafford. Councillor Hines, please.
Yes, many thanks, Leader. I'd like to start really with a bit of an apology actually for the amount of time that it's taken to bring this report back to the executive. Members might recall that the task and finish work into EHC plans for children with special educational needs and disabilities came originally to the executive in September last year. And actually the initial response was ready and was prepared by the 1st of February. And we were just waiting for the opportunity to kind of bring this back and present it. But obviously since then, we went into the altered pandemic arrangements. So this has meant that the response has been delayed really as a result of that. And although we are still obviously in the pandemic arrangements, we did think that it was really important to provide a response because we do know and appreciate that the task and finish group are rightly quite anxious for us to do this. And although the time frame has been far from ideal, I think it has given us the opportunity actually to provide an updated response which kind of captures some of the more recent activity. And I think this can be found in the Strategic Send Ambitions Plan, which is at Appendix 1 of the report. And this plan outlines the vision and ambition for SEND services. I would like to sincerely thank the Task and Finish group and the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee and everyone really who's been involved in this incredibly important piece of work. The executive and officers of the council have produced a response and I would like to thank the officers as well for their work in compiling this. A lot of work has gone into that. The Task and Finish report raises some areas of concern, which we'd like to assure members really that we do take incredibly seriously. And the response details the steps that the council is taking to address these concerns. We've been really concerned actually about the timeframes of the delivery of EHC plans, which have been outside of timeframe in the past. But we do very much welcome the significant improvements in performance in this area. We know that the team have worked incredibly hard to clear the backlog and to reduce the numbers of plans being issued outside of the time frame. But we also want to acknowledge that this remains an important priority as it is completely essential that children are assessed and supported appropriately at the earliest opportunity. And although we are pleased to see these improvements, we also recognise the concerns that have been raised with regards to the quality of plans. This is a key area of focus, and we're very keen to see the progression of the quality assurance framework that's currently being developed. The executive is also very eager to see the SEND peer review take place. This was scheduled for May this year, but unfortunately this has been temporarily put on hold because of COVID. And the pandemic has also impacted the inclusion charter for schools, which was launched earlier in the year. However, following the full reopening of schools, the aim will be to embed this within the school community to ensure every school in Trafford is an inclusive school. Understanding the experience of children, young people and families is critical in ensuring continuous improvement. The executive welcomes and encourages initiatives to support this, including proposals for a parental walkthrough of the service and a project to develop an outcome-based framework for SEND. This was recently launched through training from the Council for Disabled Children. The executive believes that clear and supportive communication is vital so that families understand what help is available and the rationale for any decision making. We champion the strengthening of relationships with Trafford families, Trafford Parents Forum, schools, providers, and our communities, and we very much welcome the positive work of the Communications and Engagement Group that is being undertaken in order to support parents through this often very confusing process. The Task and Finish group made a number of recommendations for consideration, and a response has been provided to each. It's important to note the positive work that's been undertaken to date, whilst recognising there is still more to do. Again, the SEND ambitions plan reflects the work that is planned, and the executive is committed to continuous improvements for SEND provision, and will monitor progress against the ambitions plan. The Task and Finish group have requested the executive support them to carry out further work, and we would like to confirm our support for this. The report is for noting by the executive, and it's also intended that it will go back to scrutiny, whether that be the pandemic scrutiny meeting or other arrangements, but this will give members the opportunity to ask any questions and discuss the response and any next steps. So thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Are there any questions or comments from members of the executive? No. Before I open up to questions or comments more widely, Councillor Denise Weston is on the call, who is the chair of the Children and Young People's Scrutiny Committee, and I'd just like to invite her to make any comments she may have. Councillor Weston.
I'd just like to thank officers and also the executive member for producing this report. I'm happy at this point to take it away to present to the committee, whether that be when we next meet as a CYP scrutiny or indeed in front of the Pandemic Scrutiny Committee, with your permission, Councillor Acton. I'd also like to thank the members of that particular Task and Finish group who worked so hard to put this together. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, and if you could pass on, as Councillor Hines said, our thanks to the committee. I know this has been a significant as well as a very important piece of work. Are there any other questions or comments on this paper? No? Okay, well, the response and report is for noting. Before I ask exec members to note, I should also offer a specific word of thanks to Councillor Carter, who isn't on the call, but as lead member for education, I know has also been involved with this, along with Councillor Hines and members of the Children's Services team. Okay, so can that be noted and the recommendation accepted, please?
Aye.
And then I think, just let me double check, trying to do an agenda off my phone. That brings us to urgent business, and I'm not aware of any items of urgent business. So I will draw the meeting to a close. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance. Thanks. Bye now.